welcome back. And now we're going to hear from David Martin. What did the headmaster know, and when did he know it? Thanks, David.
Thank you. And at the end of the talk, I'll explain why everybody who was born before 1960 laughed at that, and everyone who was born after, most people that were born after 1960 didn't, but we'll get to that. Okay. All right, well, now just to remind ourselves of what happened that day, this is the day when Harry and Hermione went back 3 hours in time. By the way, the exact date is given in the book, but not in the movies. The book also says that the Buckbeak's execution is to take place at sunset. And I've checked, that would have been about 9:48 in southern Scotland on that day. Excuse me, I got it right first? Yeah, 9:48. But let's see, what happened in there? The trio snuck down to visit Hagrid. They found Scabbers. Ron was dragged into a tunnel by a big black dog. The trio went into the tunnel too, met Sirius Black, and learned about the Marauders. Peter Pettigrew was exposed. They started back to the castle, and Lupin turned into a werewolf. Harry and Hermione and Black were attacked by Dementors, and the other Harry showed up to rescue them. Harry and Hermione went back 3 hours. Harry and Hermione rescued Black and Buckbeak. Now, here's where we're going. That happened in book 3. In book 5, Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore says at one point when he's getting ready to talk about the lost prophecy, I have watched you more closely than you can have imagined. Wait, I got to get a Dumbledore voice here. We entered your 3rd year. I watched from afar as you struggled to repel Dementors, as you found Sirius Black, learned what he was, and rescued him. What? I watched from afar? What's with this man? So that was my first reaction. Now, here's where we're going to go. First of all, I'm going to argue that about why Dumbledore did what he did and did not do, based on what he knew and when he knew it. We're going to look at the timeline from 8:15 to about a few minutes past midnight. By the way, we're going to need a little vocabulary trick here. At times when there are 2 Hermiones and 2 Harrys running around, I've decided what we'll do is we'll call the ones that the first-timers, and the ones who've come back through time the second-timers, okay? Just so we can get straight. We also, I don't understand this line, I have watched you more closely than you can have imagined. That sounds creepy. I mean, forget any concept of privacy at Hogwarts, you know. So I have to imagine he's got some magical device, maybe something like a pensieve that you can look into. I decided to call that the Omniviewer, all right? And it's this magical device. He's probably got it hidden in his office somewhere. This Omniviewer, and he can set it and focus and look at things. So we're going to assume that exists, because without that, nothing else makes sense. Oh, by the way, you can also hear through the Omniviewer, because he hears the explanations. You know, I heard you learn what Sirius was. So, moving right along. All right, first bit of timeline. Roughly 8:15 p.m. until 8:54 p.m. What happens? Well, the trio went down to dinner with the invisibility cloak hidden under Harry's robe. They snuck out and they hid in an empty chamber off the entry hall to wait for things to quiet down. I think Dumbledore was watching them. You remember Lupin was watching them on the Marauders map because he thought they might go down? I think Dumbledore was watching them too. What could Dumbledore have recently been thinking at this time? All right, now I need my Dumbledore voice again. The 3 of them are all distressed over the upcoming execution of Buckbeak. They're probably going to sneak down to visit Hagrid. I wish they wouldn't do that, but I'm not surprised. I know that Hagrid will do the right thing and send them back to the castle before the execution happens. Now the point is, Dumbledore's watching the entrance hall, right? So, at 8:55, the second timers appear. Now, in case you forgot, what happens is when the first time they appear, Hermione originally grabs Harry and they go hide in a broom closet. And they talk about what is supposed to be done. And they find Harry's the one who finally puts it together. Oh, we're supposed to go down and rescue Buckbeak, and then, sorry. Now, by the way, if you wanted to be a real pedant about verb tenses, Harry says to Hermione something like this: don't you remember, Dumbledore just told us where Sirius Black is imprisoned. Wait a minute. That's the past tense. He's talking about something that's going to happen 3 hours from now. Listen, if time travel ever becomes common, we're going to need a whole mess of new verb tenses, all right? like past in my timeline, but future in yours, or something like that. Now, they leave there. They hide down in the woods. They're hiding outside Hagrid's house. The first timers are just walking down under the invisibility cloak, and they get there. They visit Hagrid. They recover Scabbers. Hagrid looks out the window, sees the execution party coming, pushes the first timers out the back door. Now, Dumbledore saw at least the first part of that on his scope, right? His omniviewer. And obviously he listened to the conversation between Harry and Hermione in the closet. So, what could the headmaster reasonably assume at this point? And this is our first question, and we'll throw out sherbet lemons for people to answer. What does the headmaster know for sure? Anybody? That time travel's involved. Ah, there is time travel involved. Yay. All right. So he knows something positive. He knows that at some point in the future, Harry and Hermione are going to come back in time. That's something positive he knows. He knows something positive. He also, now think about this carefully, he also knows something negative. He knows something about what's not going to happen. What does he know is not going to happen? What?
Ron is not with them.
Ron is, I'm sorry, what?
Not with them. Ron is not with them.
Ron is not, yeah, he knows Ron's not with them, but he also knows something very important about the second time, the first timers and the second timers. What does he know? Okay, this is the one I finally figured out. No. Interesting. He knows that at some time in the relatively near future, and I'm thinking maybe he played detectives and noticed they're wearing the same clothes, you know. He knows that sometime in the relatively near future they're going to come back. Therefore, he knows that they're not going to be killed in the next 3 hours. Right? That's a safe assumption. Nothing is going to happen that will hurt or damage you. Don't know about Ron, but he can definitely be sure. Can definitely be sure that Harry and Hermione, the first timer Harry and Hermione, are going to survive the next some hours, right? So I think he must thought, all right, no, here's my Dumbledore voice again. After he started, the second timer Harry and Hermione, he sees them come down, knows those things. All right, so wait a minute, I'm sorry, jumped ahead of myself here. At some point in the future, Hermione will use her time turner to travel back to this moment, bringing Harry with her. So clearly, both the first-timer Harry and first-timer Hermione, first-timer Harry, will still be alive and well at that future point in time. Using the time turner for something other than classes is very out of character for Hermione, and even more so out of character for her to bring another person with her. So there must be something very important that is about to happen that they want to influence. Their plan, as discussed in the closet, is to rescue Buckbeak and so that Sirius Black can escape on him. But where is Sirius Black? Why would he need to be rescued? And why would they be helping him? He still thinks Sirius Black is a bad guy at this point, right? They are determined to rescue Buckbeak, so I will help them with that if I can, and see how this plays out. So, moving right along. 9:30 to 9:45. All right. First timers start back to the castle, still under the invisibility cloak, at least. Hiding in the woods. They wait until the execution party has seen Buckbeak, then they go back and then the party goes back inside. Then Harry, and by the way, in the book it's only Harry, then Harry manages to persuade Buckbeak to come out. And Dumbledore is at Hagrid's house with the execution party. What could Dumbledore and reasonably assume at this point? The second timer, Harry and Hermione, should be in possession of Buckbeak, but have not done so. Oh, of course. If they grab Buckbeak now, Hagrid will be blamed for setting Buckbeak free. So they will wait until we've all seen Buckbeak and then grab him when our backs are turned. I can help that plan alone. And Dumbledore does exactly that, both in the book and the film. You know, he says, I've got to write my whole name, all 5 parts of it, you know. And McNamara says you're supposed to sign it too, and so on. Moving right along. 9:45 to 10 o'clock. Now, this is when things get exciting for some people. Ron Scabbers and the first timers were taken and lured into the Shrieking Shack. They met in fault with Sirius Black. The second timers didn't do much. The second timers stayed hidden in the woods. They could watch the Whomping Willow because they had to know when people would come and go. Dumbledore was walking back to the castle with the other members of the execution team, and then I'm sure he ran to see what was going on the Omniviewer. Second-timer Harry and Hermione are from the future. They have already been through whatever is happening to the first-timer Harry and Hermione that are currently in the Shrieking Shack. It must be that it will turn out all right. It must be that they will turn out all right because the second-timers are making no effort to change them. All right, moving right along. 10 o'clock to 10:45. By the way, this takes up like 3 or 4 chapters in the book. It's a long time, that 45 minutes. So, Lupin enters. Oh, I forgot the second timers saw Lupin enter, by the way. Second timers, the first timers, Lupin entered the Shrieking Shack and disarmed everyone. The first timers and Ron learned about the Marauders. Snape entered and was knocked out. Peter Pettigrew was revealed. Harry saved Peter Pettigrew's life, and they started back to the castle. Wow! What a lot of action. Now let's see what the second timers were doing. The second timers stayed hidden in the woods. They saw Snape enter the tunnel. All right, not terribly exciting. Now Dumbledore's back in his office, watched him by now. So what does he know? Listening to the tale Lupin and Sirius Black tell, I'm amazed. All this happens, 3 students learn to be animagi. Fine headmaster I was. I wonder what else I missed. And here's Peter Pettigrew. It was noble of first-timer Harry to spare Peter Pettigrew's life. And of course he's right that if Pettigrew were killed, there would be no way to prove Sirius Black's innocence. But what are those second-timers waiting for? What do they know is going to happen? Why would Sirius Black need to be rescued now? He's about to be exonerated. Moving right along. Another action-packed period, 10:45 to 11 o'clock. The group from the Shrieking Shack emerges from the tunnel. Lupin was struck by moonlight and turned into a werewolf. Peter Pettigrew escaped. Dementors almost kissed the first-timers and Sirius Black. Second-timer Harry cast a Patronus at the last moment. The second-timers and Buckbeak, first when they went hiding back to Hagrid's house. Second time Harry went back out because he wanted to see who cast the Patronus. Figured out at the last moment he had to cast it. And Dumbledore watched all this from afar. So, Dumbledore's thinking, watching the Omniviewer. With their knowledge of the future, the second-timers must have known that Lupin would turn into a werewolf, thereby disrupting their plans. They're probably here to deal with some of the consequence of this disruption, and surely they knew about the attack by the Dementors. I would have stepped in myself, except that, obviously, the first-timers, Harry and Hermione, survived this attack because they may be able to return to the present moment from some time in the future via the time turner. What are the second-timers back here to do? Moving right along. 11 o'clock to 11:10. Now, not a lot to report in one sense. First-timers, unconscious. We don't have anything from them. Second-timers, they're sitting there in the woods watching. What do they see? They see Snape gather everybody up and put them on stretchers and start off to the castle. Dumbledore is watching all this. This is what he's thinking, my construction. Now we have a disaster because with Pettigrew gone, there's no proof of Sirius Black's innocence. As soon as Professor Snape gets him and the others up to the castle, Fudge will be told that Sirius Black has been captured, and that will be the end of Sirius Black. Wait, I get it now. Now I see why Sirius Black needs to escape and why Buckbeak is the way for him to do it, flying out rather than trying to go on foot. And of course, he can't disapparate within Hogwarts. That must be the plan I'm going to give Harry and Hermione. Very clever, if I do say so myself. But that can only happen if Sirius Black is locked up some way up high that Harry and Hermione can fly to. That can be arranged. Now it gets exciting. (11:10 to 11:45). First-timers Harry and Hermione were unconscious. Apparently, what we can reconstruct from what's seen later, Snape delivered the 4 people on stretchers to the castle. Snape apparently told his story what was happening to Fudge and Dumbledore. The second-timers waited and watched the castle. A lot of action there. Apparently, Dumbledore made up some reason why Sirius Black should be imprisoned in Flitwick's office up high on the 7th floor, rather than, say, in the dungeon or in the entrance hall. Apparently, he also went and talked to Sirius Black, because he says later, I've talked to Sirius Black. It's getting tight. 11:40 to 11:55. First-timers, Harry and Hermione, woke up. They tried to tell Fudge and Snape that Black was innocent. Dumbledore insisted on speaking to them alone. He told them more time was needed and where Black was. First-timers went back 3 hours. The second-timers saw McNair come out of the castle to fetch a Dementor. They flew Buckbeak to Flitwick's office and freed Black. Black and Buckbeak escaped together. The second-timers ran back to the hospital wing. What could Dumbledore have known, and what could he have imagined at this point? Okay, we've got Sirius Black. Safely locked up on the 7th floor, so now he can be rescued by the second-timers on Buckbeak. Now I just have to send Hermione, first-timers Harry and Hermione, on their way. I fear that Professor Snape is going to be very disappointed. (11:55 to 12:15). Harry and Hermione, who are now the only Harry and Hermione at Hogwarts, lay in the beds in the hospital wing and accepted their treatment from Madame Pomfrey. Snape came into the hospital wing and demanding to know what Harry had done. Madame Pomfrey assured Sirius and Fudge that the children had not been out of the hospital wing. So, Conclusion. Based on what the headmaster knew and when he knew it, his actions and inactions that evening were completely sensible and even wise. There is no reason to question or impeach the headmaster's judgment. Additional notes. 1, let it be noted that the date this happened, June 6th, 1994, that was the day that Harry and Hermione experienced a 27-hour day, right? It was their longest day. It was also the 50th anniversary of D-Day in World War II, and D-Day was often called the longest day. So, typical JKR little touch, she made their longest day on the 50th anniversary of the longest day. Professor James Thomas wrote a book called Repotting Harry Potter in 2009. And one of the things he discovered is that there's a lot of wordplay with the words serious meaning important and the word Sirius being a name. And there's lines like when Professor Dumbledore gives the wand back, the thunderbolt back, Harry's jaw dropped. Professor McGonagall was holding out his firebolt, and it looked magnificent as ever. I can have it back? Harry asked weakly. Seriously? Seriously, said Professor McGonagall. I ran the stats. That word is actually statistically more common in that book than in the other books. But it doesn't occur after they leave the Shrieking Shack. After they left the Shrieking Shack, I guess it was no longer fun. And then for everybody who was born since 1960, during the Watergate hearings on the misconduct of the Nixon administration, Senator Howard Baker of Tennessee, Republican of Tennessee, at one time summarized their investigation by saying, we need to know what the president knew and when he knew it, because that would indicate to what extent Nixon had been involved. So as I say, everybody of a certain age recognizes that line. Also, did you notice Flitwick's office is on the 7th floor and 13 windows from the West Wing? I know this is the 13th year of this, but do you notice how often the numbers 7 and 13 show up in Harry Potter? The vault they go into for the Philosopher's Stone, 713. This instance, 7th floor, 13 weeks. And if you really want to get fussy, it's only in the movies, but Harry's vault in Gringotts is 687. For those of us who have a superior mathematical mind, we notice that that is actually 687 is actually 700 minus 13. So now you know. Let's see here. Then I have generally been disrespectful of the movies, but I got to admit, the best joke in the whole series is when the second timers are there in the woods and they see the first timer comes out, and second timer Hermione comes out and says, "Is that really what my hair looks like from behind?" So let's hear it for the scriptwriter on that one. Okay, thank you.